Last Friday saw the Hurricanes take on the defending champions, the Crusaders, in the first Super 12 semi-final. The following day, the Brumbies Blues of Auckland.
Last week also saw a dream come true for Paolo Familiari as he and his team took part in the Trofeo Topolino in Italy.
And a report on the security arrangements being put in place ahead of the World Year. Still to come, the amazing exploits of Paolo Familiari and his team of youngsters from the Congo as they took part in the recent Trofeo Topolino in Italy.
And we chat with Tonga's captain Inoki Afiaki about his hopes for Tonga at the World Cup.
Three months ago, we brought you the story of Paolo Familiari, an Italian who travelled to the Congo 3 years ago and ended up staying there to teach the local youngsters how to play rugby. A sporting missionary, his aim, in a country where poverty is rife, was to help inspire the children and give them a rare opportunity to see the world. That opportunity came last week when he and his youngsters travelled from the Congo to take part in the Trofeo Topolino, Italy's biggest youth rugby festival. On the eve of the tournament, Paolo and his boys finally arrived in Treviso. They were given a hero's welcome, and they wasted little time in making themselves at home, introducing some of their own culture to the locals who'd stayed up late into the night to greet them after their arduous journey. Amongst the welcoming committee was Italy's fullback Mirko Bergamasco, who handed the boys their brand new kit, as well as an equally well-received bag of sweets. After a first taste of Italian cuisine, it was off to bed. This would prove to be the start of a quite remarkable weekend. The following morning, youngsters from all over Italy converged on Treviso for the start of the tournament. The festival has been taking place in Treviso for the past 30 years. This year, more than 3,000 youngsters took part, with teams coming from as far as England and Russia, as well as the boys from the Congo.
This year, there are 65 clubs, with 198 teams, divided into 4 categories. There are the under-9s, the under-11s, under-13s and the under-15s. Most come from Italy, but we've had this huge surprise this year with the appearance of the under-11 side from the Congo for this competition. Thanks to the efforts of Paolo Familiari, he's managed to bring his team to Treviso.
By the time the boys took to the pitch for their first match, they'd already won a whole new legion of friends. And once the game was underway, all Paolo could do was look on anxiously. Simply taking part in the tournament was all that Paolo had ever hoped for. For his team to not only hold their own but to win was simply too much for both him and assistant coach Thierry Hernando. For the boys, they couldn't have wished for more, nor made a bigger impression on those who were lucky enough to meet them.
I'm going through incredible emotions. I'm Italian. I've returned to Italy many times. But this time, I'm seeing it through totally different eyes, as the children are making me appreciate even the smallest of things. They thought the hotel was a town hall, because that's the best building they have in Pointe-Noire. I feel totally weird with everything I'm experiencing these days. It's just a dream.
Benetton Treviso has been one of the driving forces behind the growth of rugby in Italy. They've recognised for some time now that for the youngsters taking part, this tournament helps them not only in their development as rugby players, but it also enriches their lives.
This is a very important event for the promotion of youth rugby in the country. It's difficult to promote the sport in a country like ours, where football is still the main sport. This tournament is a reference point for all the people who love rugby, for the parents who dream of bringing their children here, who themselves dream of coming here as well, and who dream of winning. The long waiting, the disappointments, the satisfaction of winning, these are really the first steps of a young rugby player.
The second day of the tournament saw the finals for the different age groups with a hugely impressive crowd adding to what had already become an astonishing weekend. It was here that the youngsters from the Congo bade farewell, but for Paolo, the hard work and effort doesn't stop here. He has another dream he's hoping to achieve.
We have another project now. It's called Let's Go to Mars. We want to try and pay for the schooling for these children. Many of them don't go to school because they don't have the money to go. Classes are made up of 250 kids. We'd like to give them the chance to go to a private school, but a private school costs €15 a month. But there are only 25 kids per class, and they have blackboards and books. Most of all, it'll give a chance to these youngsters who really have nothing.
In the finals, the under-9 age group was won by the youngsters of Rovigo. Petrarca beat Benevento in the under-11s. The under-13 title went to Sandona, whilst the home side won the under-15s category, beating Rovigo 14-7. But it was the appearance and the performances of the youngsters from the Congo that will live long in the memory. Who knows, in a few years' time there might be a new rugby-playing force coming out of the African continent.
They did very well. It was a surprise to everybody, not only their technical ability, but also because they're just really good kids. They're behaving really well. You can tell they're not used to this sort of tournament. These are all things that they're experiencing for the first time. So they might be a bit unsure, but they've been really good.
I love rugby. I started when I was 7 years old, just like these kids, and I played rugby for 26 years. My life is with rugby. But in so many years, even when playing in Serie A, my greatest joy has been here, when we won our first game, and I cried. And some youngsters who are training together. When I went to the first training session, I couldn't fail but notice a difference between the Europeans, who were wearing rugby gear, and the local African boys, who were just wearing a pair of shorts, bare feet, and no shirts.
The Republic of Congo suffers from the same difficulties as much of Central Africa. It's a third world country with third world problems. A large proportion of the population live in very basic conditions, and so moved was Paolo by what he saw, he was determined to do something.
It occurred to me to organise a training session and to show rugby to the kids and give them some kit, since over there they badly need it. They have nothing. And after the first training session, I was so excited. The kids were so happy. So I started training with them regularly, once a week.
The only sport played regularly in schools is football, but Paolo recognised in the boys a lot of energy and natural athleticism, which he thought would be perfectly suited to rugby. Yet some of the youngsters did take some convincing.
The first time they saw the oval ball, they were really puzzled. One asked me whether it was a coconut. Another one asked me how much the man who had sat on the ball had weighed. Rugby isn't a natural game like football, which is easier to understand. In rugby, when you advance, you have to pass the ball behind you. This was difficult for them to grasp.
There's a long way still to go for Paolo, but he has started the ball rolling. He can't do it all himself, though. At the moment, he's able to coach and look after 40 youngsters, but he's had to turn away more than 200. He's paid for much-needed medicines, for taxi fares, and even for meals for the players, something that most of us take for granted.
They live in very sad conditions. The luckiest ones have a sort of house, a hut with no beds. They eat if they can. One kid I coached told me that he feels lucky if he can drink a cup of milk in the evenings before going to bed. They live in the mud, the dirt, and they have no money for medicine. They have very little, but that little they enjoy, which includes coming to train. For them, this is already an achievement.
Paolo's efforts aren't going unnoticed. He's been the subject of a television documentary in his home country, and more help is starting to come in, not least from Italy's rugby community. And it appears more is on its way, some of it from the most unlikely of sources.
I have received help from rugby fans, but also from people who have never seen a rugby ball in their life, but who heard or read about the story elsewhere. Just this morning, I received a letter from a boy who was telling me that he was giving up buying a bike for himself and was giving me $500 for the project. In fact, he sent me $510, saying that the extra $10
used the money raised to bring his youngsters to a youth festival in Italy in May. Most of them have never been beyond the boundaries of their own village, let alone been on an aeroplane to Europe. It would be a dream not just for these children, but also for the man who first gave them the chance to achieve it.
I don't feel like I am a missionary. My will to help them began when I compared my lifestyle with theirs. I think that any decent human being, in order to be able to look at himself in the mirror, must look at the world as it is and help people who are less fortunate. This is what gives me the enthusiasm and the strength to help these children.
If you'd like to find out more about Paolo's incredible story, you can contact him on the email address below.